of when the compact would have normally ended. So there is definitely the recognition, both within MCC and then also within Congress, that COVID has had a huge impact, and they've fortunately kind of granted us this opportunity and this leeway in order to address that so that our programs won't be negatively impacted.
Thank you. I think that was very helpful information. And like I said, there's an overwhelming response and questions. And I think what we'll do is we'll do our best to get back and circle back as many as we can. But thank you so much, Alicia. Really enjoyed having you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks. So great. So we're going to move on to our first panel discussion. And we are honored and privileged to have such a distinguished panel. We'll be hearing from Mr. Prudence Sebahizi, who's the Chief Technical Advisor of the African Free Trade Area and also head of the African Union Trade Negotiation. And in addition, we'll be hearing from Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Akuna Cook, and U.S. Senator from the Commonwealth of Virginia, Mark Warner. Again, after our three panelists and speakers have provided their remarks, we'll have some time for a Q&A, and that will be moderated by Shonda, who's my right-hand person, as well as Bo Machayo. And Bo is the Regional Director for Senator Warner, and he works at the nexus of public engagement and legislation, ensuring stakeholders from diverse backgrounds are heard in Senator Warner's office. And I am honored to introduce our first speaker for remarks, and that is Mr. Prudence Sebahizi, again, who's the Chief Technical Advisor of the African Free Trade Area and head of the African Union Trade Negotiation. Prudence Sebahizi is the Chief Technical Advisor on the AFCFTA and head of AFCFTA Negotiation Support Unit based in the Department of Trade and Industry and the African Union Commission. He provides technical and strategic advice to the AFCFTA negotiating institutions, as well as to the Commissioner of Trade and Industry on the AFCFTA negotiations. He's the overall coordinator of the AFCFTA negotiations and coordinates a team of senior experts and advisors on various issues under negotiations. We're pleased to have Mr. Prudence Sebahizi. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, Babajide, for that long introduction. Let me start by greeting everyone on the panel and all participants. Good morning. I know most of you it is in the morning, but here in Addis Ababa we are in the night, so it's 7 p.m. already. Before I make my remarks, I would like to convey gratitude and warm greetings from the Secretary General of African Continental Free Trade Area, His Excellency Wamkele Mene. He is very happy that you have invited him, and he delegated me to represent the FCFTA Secretariat at this very important trade summit. I know the importance of this this forum. I'm going to talk briefly about the African Continental Free Trade Area. I would have wished to have longer time, but I know time is limited. Let me start by giving you a background of what most of you already know about Africa. Africa is a continent with 55 countries. And it has been identified that within those 55 countries, we have about 107 borders, land borders that separate them. So if you have to do business in Africa, then you have to cross all those 107 borders, and this comes with a cost. And the average cost of crossing your products from one country to the other is about 6.9% of tariff that has to be paid those who understand international trade, this is the average tariff rate when you trade in Africa. Secondly, we know that there's no much intra-African trade when compared to other continents in the world. Intra-African trade is only estimated at 18%, compared to other continents which are more advanced, such as Europe, where you have intra-Europe trade is up to 68%. In Asia, it is around 60%. So there is little percentage of trade across African countries, despite the fact that there are many countries and the continent is big. So this means that there are challenges that have to be addressed on the continent. So the AfCFTA, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area, is intended to address those challenges, those obstacles, not only the challenges related to tariff, but also challenges related to what we call non-tariff barriers, which are mainly the complex customs procedures, the bureaucracies, corruption, and other challenges that make doing business on the continent being expensive. So the AfCFTA, of course, is a market. It's bringing together 1.27 billion African, which is a large population, and about 3.4 trillion US dollar in terms of the combined GDP of Africa. And as I said, 55 countries form that market. And when you bring all of them together, you are trying to remove those artificial borders that separate them. And by doing so, we are creating opportunities. So there are many opportunities that will arise when we implement this AfCFTA agreement. And one of those is directly related to the welfare gains for the consumers. Consumers on the continent, with the AfCFTA market, they're going to have a broad, let me say, a broad range of choice of products for them to consume, because if intra-African trade level was at 18%, with this AfCFTA removing the barriers, we hope that intra-African trade is going to increase. And when intra-African trade increases, there are many products which were not traditionally reaching some parts of the continent, which are now going to reach easily and at an affordable price for consumers. And the other aspect that consumers are going to benefit from is the quality of products. The AfCFTA is setting standards for products that will be traded on the continent. So we are going to ensure that Africa is consuming standard products. Africa will no more be a dumping ground for low quality products, because the AfCFTA is going to regulate the quality of products. The second opportunity that we see brought by the AfCFTA is opportunity for attracting investment. Attracting investment from within the continent, but also from outside the continent. The AfCFTA is going to address this in two ways. One, looking at it from a market perspective, the AfCFTA is widening the market of the continent. And by widening the market, then investors are going to benefit from economies of scale. They don't need to come and invest in each and every African countries. They would rather come invest in one country and then sell their products across 55 countries. The second aspect where we are going to attract investment is through rules that we are going to set up in the protocol on investment. The protocol on investment is going to mainly address issues of investment facilitation. And by doing so, we are removing all barriers that have been hindering investors to come and invest on the continent. What I can tell the audience is that those who want to invest, this is the right time to come and invest in Africa. There are a number of sectors that are coming up, especially manufacturing sector, automotive sector, textile industry, air transport, services, and financial services. Those are very key sectors that we think are going to boost as a result of implementing AFCFTA. And the AFCFTA is also going to create job, and this is very important. It's going to create job in the sense that it's going to lead to transformation or structural transformation of economies. With AFCFTA, we are going to move from traditional exports of raw materials and come up with processing of those raw materials into finished product. And when we go through the processing of those raw materials, then we are setting up industries that will create jobs for different categories of people who could not afford jobs in the past. So the AFCFTA is going to be another policy framework to boost employment on the continent. AFCFTA is also going to contribute to poverty reduction, of course, by many ways. We have done studies about it, and recently published World Bank report has revealed that with AFCFTA, we are going to lift about 100 million people out of poverty. And 30 million of them are going to be lifted out of extreme poverty. So those are people who will be living on less than $1 a day. So these people are going to be lifted out of poverty by implementing the AFCFTA. And the AFCFTA is also going to ensure the income distribution, especially that it's going to provide jobs to unskilled labor compared to those jobs that were occupied by skilled labor before AFCFTA. And it is also going to ensure equal distribution of job opportunities among men and women, because sectors where there are many women employed are going to be boosted by AFCFTA implementation. So I think those are some of the key important aspects that we have to take home for the AFCFTA. I may maybe leave it here and expect questions, if any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sebaizi. And now we will have our next speaker. Our next speaker is Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Africa Bureau, Akuna Cook. Akuna Cook serves as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, where she oversees the development of U.S. foreign policy for Southern Africa, as well as economic and regional issues, including trade, investment, climate, health, multilateral engagement, democracy, and human rights. Deputy Assistant Secretary Cook began her State Department career over 20 years ago. Deputy Secretary Cook, over to you.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to thank the Dulles Regional Chamber of Commerce, Senator Warner, and also you, Mr. Babajide, for convening this event. As Babajide just explained, I am responsible for trade, but really our overall economic and commercial engagement with Africa, and I consider it to be a significant part of my portfolio. You know, the Biden-Harris administration is focused on building back better. A significant part of that agenda is ensuring that we have a foreign policy for the middle class. Rebuilding the American middle class involves creating new and better jobs, raising wages, and strengthening communities. Robust trade, investment, and commercial linkages with Africa has to be part of the agenda. And as I said, it's a significant part of my day-to-day responsibilities. I returned to the State Department, where I spent the early part of my career as a Foreign Service officer. I returned after spending the past 8 or 9 years focusing on domestic policy priorities, including ensuring that the American economy works for marginalized communities. And part of that was my work as the executive director of the Black Economic Alliance. We saw over the past years, this pandemic and the multiple crises that were exposed, if you will, as part of the pandemic, just how connected our economic development and home and abroad really are. This administration believes that our trade and international economic policies must serve all Americans and not just the privileged few. Promoting prosperity at home and abroad, the United States must commit to building economic partnerships with Africa, and we have. We recognize the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and that has challenged economics for countries across the world. In Africa, the crisis caused by the pandemic has resulted in the first year of economic decline in over 25 years and has caused up to 40 million people to fall into extreme poverty. As such, we are focused on economic recovery. The US is committed to helping all Americans and countries around the world, including in Africa, to save lives and recover economically from COVID-19. We will build back better by boosting jobs and opportunities. And to that end, we're encouraging more businesses, and especially small and medium-sized businesses, to take a closer look at sub-Saharan Africa. Many US companies are already working on the continent, but we want to see more. We want to address risk perceptions by helping individuals and businesses recognize opportunities that exist in a dynamic African economies that are open for business. And where appropriate, we'll be providing advocacy and other resources to make sure that we are really engaged at the highest levels in increasing these commercial linkages between the continent and the United States. In particular, we are looking at ways to boost connections between small and medium-sized businesses here in the United States to those in Africa. And that includes businesses founded by members of the African diaspora in the United States, which we consider to be all people of African descent. Many in the African diaspora are already aware of the opportunities, but we can and must do more to tap into their knowledge, existing support, and inclination to engage on the continent and support their business goals. We're also engaging African countries through economic and commercial diplomacy to promote enabling environments that welcome the private sector. Overall, many parts of the government are looking at ways to boost support for two-way trade and investment between the United States and Africa. Many are familiar with the multi-agency Prosper Africa initiative, and I believe you'll be hearing from Prosper Africa later today, as well as the other key US agencies involved. I also want to highlight the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which provides beneficiary countries with duty-free access to US markets for eligible products. Currently, 39 African countries are AGOA beneficiaries. Since AGOA's inception, non-oil and non-mineral exports from sub-Saharan Africa have increased 250%. The United States also supports the AFCFTA, which Mr. Sahizi spoke about earlier. And we are looking at ways to increase our support even more because as we've talked about, really closing the barriers between African countries and decreasing the trade barriers will ensure that companies see Africa as one large market instead of 55 separate markets that they must then negotiate and pay increased cost to be a part of. And we believe that will really not only create jobs, increase investment, but also strengthen the US-Africa relationship. And so I'm pleased to note that the United States has provided targeted technical assistance to the AFCFTA Secretariat, and we hope to do much more. Later this week, the president will host a summit on the climate crisis. In Africa, we want to facilitate investment in climate-smart infrastructure and build resilience to climate change. Together, we can drive a green energy revolution both at home and abroad. There was a question earlier about youth engagement, and I think that this is an area where young people, both in the United States but in Africa, can really be engaged in ensuring that the climate technologies of the future are built for today, but also with the future in mind. One way that we are working on climate is through Power Africa, launched by the Obama administration. Power Africa has brought first-time electricity to more than 88 million people. It has also facilitated the financial close of over 100 power sector transactions across sub-Saharan Africa. Many proudly feature US content and services. Bringing this back home, we know increasing global ties is good for Virginia. In 2020, Virginia exported $16.4 billion in goods to the world. This figure included almost $578 million in exports to countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Today, Virginia's top trading partners in Africa are South Africa, Nigeria, Senegal, and Ghana. We hope to see these numbers and the list of top partner countries grow. Increasing partnerships and two-way trade and investment with Africa promotes prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic. The administration is committed to ensuring that US foreign and economic policies bring that prosperity to the middle class, including in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Again, I'd like to thank all of you and Senator Warner and the organizers for hosting this, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Assistant Secretary Cook, for your remarks. And I will now turn over to Bo Machayo to introduce our keynote speaker, Senator Mark Warner.
Hey, everyone. My name is Bill Machayo. I'm the Regional Director for U.S. Senator Mark Warner, former governor, as he so eloquently always mentions, and now is also the Senior Senator and Chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and also sits on Finance and Banking. So I'll turn it over to you, Senator Warner.
Well, thank you, Bo, and thank you as well for helping me become more familiar with the African diaspora in Virginia. It's great to see Secretary Cook. I want to thank the governor's office. I want to thank the Dulles Chamber. I think particularly the Dulles Chamber, I think it was really thoughtful to think about this kind of opportunity with Dulles as one of our major gateway airports to the whole world, including Africa. We have Dulles in Northern Virginia. We have obviously the port in Hampton Roads, both which can strengthen Virginia's ties. And for the fact that we've got 185 people assembled here from the business community, from the African diaspora. One of the things that Bo, part of that, Bo coming from family that's part of that diaspora, has helped me over the last year is our office has reached out specifically to the Sudanese community, for example, to the Ethiopian community, to the African diaspora communities from the Horn of Africa. And then we had a separate outreach to the communities in West Africa. In Virginia, we're proud of the fact that we have 150,000 first-generation African Americans in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And as we think about how we strengthen these ties, and as Secretary Cook said, how we can work, for example, with our friends from the African Continental Free Trade Association, so that Virginia-based business, American-based business can view Africa as a single market, not 55 separate markets. Mr. Shahbazi says, I think one of the assets that we bring to the table is that African diaspora that lives in Virginia. I think about Secretary Cook's comments of Virginia doing $17 billion of trade, but only $500 million of it with Africa. That shows to me a great opportunity. I think one of the things that those of us on the American side of this discussion, should be embarrassed at is if you count all of American trade with Africa, not just Virginia's. The United States of America's total trade with Africa is less than the country of Netherlands trade with Africa. This is an opportunity, one of the fastest growing markets in the world. And again, by having a prominent African diaspora in Virginia and in America, we've got people that know these markets, that know these communities. We just simply have to find out ways to link them better. And as Bo mentioned, one of the things I've tried to do is, I'm proud of the fact that not only Bo works for me, but I've got somebody from the Sudanese community working on my staff now, somebody from the Somali community working on my staff now, to make sure that my office is comfortable, familiar, and that this outreach is not a one-time affair only. And one of the things I look forward to coming out of this discussion is specific action items that I can take as an advocate for this increased trade, collaboration, and cooperation. because I know, and I'll close with this comment because I know we'll get to the questions. I see from my role sitting as chair of the Intelligence Committee what China is trying to do in Africa. I mean, China has with the Belt Road Initiative and then with the digital Silk Road, they are making enormous investments in a number of African countries, many times exploitive in terms of taking mineral resources and sometimes offering deals that appear too good to be true, where we've seen African nations then caught in a debt trap. But at least China is there with money. And the United States of America needs to not just talk that we're going to increase this trade and collaboration, but we need to actually do it, implement programs. I commend the Biden administration's comments of making this a higher emphasis. Obviously, during the previous administration, suffice it to say that this was not a priority. It needs to be returned as a priority, both in terms of economic opportunities, but you've got the fastest growing part of the whole world in terms of population growth. We need to make sure America has got strong ties to the continent. And again, speaking from a Virginia-centric standpoint, taking advantage of that 150,000 strong African diaspora in Virginia, that can be the ambassadors in so many ways. And my hope is, as businesses across Virginia look at strengthening these ties, they can draw upon this enormous resource of the African diaspora in Virginia as to help open those doors and be those lead agents of this kind of cooperation and collaboration. So kudos to the Dulles Chamber, and let's see if I can take away a few action items from this presentation.
Thanks, Senator Warner. Thanks, Mr. Sebahizi. Thanks, Deputy Secretary Akuna Cook. Like Senator Warner said, we'll be taking questions, so make sure to please put the questions in the Q&A box so that we can make sure that we get to it. I do know that we had some questions that were submitted earlier, so I want to make sure that we get to those too. So I want to make sure to turn it over to Mame, who's a resident of Richmond and owns the Dine Diaspora. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you all for your presentation and your timely remarks. This question is for Deputy Secretary Cook and Senator Warner, but Mr. Sebahizi, please feel free to answer this as well. How do you envision the U.S.-Africa multilateral engagement being strengthened post-COVID?
I'll begin and then let my co-panelists join in. So multilateral engagement is a top priority of this administration. We see the what I would just call recession of the U.S. engagement on in the multilateral sphere over the past few years is a mistake. You saw right out of the gate, we rejoined the Paris Climate Accords. We rejoined the World Health Organization, and the Biden-Harris administration engaged right away multilaterally on COVID by being one of the major donors to COVAX, a $2 billion investment right away with an additional $2 billion commitment to COVAX. But we are also engaging through the African Union. As Mr. Sebahizi, I'm sure will note, our engagement with the continent has been, really anchored in building strong relationships with the African Union. President Biden made comments and remarks at the African Union Summit in February. We continue to engage with AU Presidents Tshisekedi and Commissioner Faki, and we'll continue to do that, as you will see through our engagement over the next couple of weeks. We prioritize engagement with the AU because we know, as we've acknowledged, that engaging multilaterally is really the best way and one of the most effective ways to address any number of issues, and certainly including the health crisis that we're experiencing right now.
the various states of our continent with communication. We shall attune the world with our hydroelectric power. We shall drain marshes and swamps, clear infested areas, feed the undernourished, and rid our people of parasites and disease. It is within the possibility of science and technology to make even the Saharan bloom into a vast field with verdant vegetation for agricultural and industrial development. Under the AFCFTA, we will fulfill this vision of Kwame Nkrumah, and currently Africa needs to strengthen her legal frameworks on trade and industry. On the part and the role of higher education, we place at this disposal of your numerous stakeholders our expertise in legal consultancy, even efficiency in organizational management, professional and technical competencies needed by industry. We also provide continuous training for the business community, as well as entrepreneurship and innovation in our academic operations to fit our graduates in the world of work after graduation. Again, our concerted efforts must be mutually reinforcing as prerequisite condition to right the wrongs of doing business in Africa. The next 4 days promise to be exciting, and we look forward to contributing our efforts to achieve this goal. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me finally to seize this opportunity to say Happy International Women's Day to all women of higher education in Africa. And thank you for your attention.
Professor Ehile, thank you very much for your welcome, your pledge of support from the higher education sector, because our ambition will be nothing without that, and the reminder of Kwame Nkrumah's ambition for Africa that we can now begin to realize. I immediately introduce to you our next speaker, Mr. Yusuf Dawale. He is the president of PACCI. He comes from Djibouti, where he's worked in the Chamber of Commerce, an expert in the export of food and construction, as well as a staunch knowledge of the public sector. Mr. Yusuf Dawale, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ambassador, to give me the floor. His Excellency Mahamadou Issoufou, President of the Republic of Niger, His Excellency Mr. Wankele Wene, Secretary General of AFCFTA Secretariat, Dr. Stefan Karingi, Director, Regional Integration of Trade Division, UN Economic Commission of Africa, Professor Etienne Etienne, Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, Dr. Asfour, President of Africa Business Council, Mr. Oliveira Gomez, Assistant Secretary General of Organization of Caribbean, Pacific, and African States. Special salutation to women in honor to the International Women's Day. Permit me to begin my welcome remarks in celebration of International Women's Day by recognizing and celebrating all the women who made today's occasion possible. Thank you for your talent, leadership, commitment on this common vision, a vision of the private sector rightful place in Africa's transformation. On behalf of Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Executive Council, and the Secretariat Management, it's my privilege and my pleasure to have been invited to be a part of this occasion, which marks the opening of the inaugural African Private Sector Summit. That was much a high-level event by many heads of states, especially President Yusufu, who are in attendance virtually right now, serve as a reminder of just how important in this moment and possibilities make a lead and more competitive mode through adjustment of the firm level. Today, with dialogue of the elements and stiffness implementation of EFCFTA, I encourage you to explore how the agreement shall achieve sustainable and inclusive socially, economically development, gender equity, and structural transformation within member states. I hope that we embrace the fundamental principle of gender equity in our organization structures for gender balance and in the corridor of academia, the public sector, and the private sector. I also extend greeting to Professor Etienne Eyon, Secretary General of the Association of African Universities. We have been asked why involve African universities in a private sector initiative. The reciprocal question is, how do we attempt to transform Africans' resource, provide support services without a functional education system to offer the skilled human capital needed for economic empowerment and the transformation. Mr. Secretary General, thank you to being receptive and supportive with action of academia and private sector partnership. We look forward to this partnership in collaboration with the public, look forward to serving the catalyst of the implementation of EFCFTA. Je voudrais balancer en français et vous obliger à prendre la traduction. Mesdames et messieurs, la mise en œuvre du CELECAF suscite l'alignement des conditions idéales pour faire des affaires sur le continent avec facilité. En effet, grâce à ces mécanismes d'envergure, les économies d'Afrique pourront désormais aspirer à avoir une complémentarité élevée, grâce notamment à l'accroissement des échanges et des transactions commerciales entre Africains. Pour cela, il sera obligé en priorité de favoriser le développement des chaînes de valeur régionales. Nous réalisons tous l'ampleur du marché qui sera ainsi placé à la portée de nos entreprises grâce à la mise en place de la ZLECAF qui va connecter à terme 55 pays et devenir le plus grand marché commun du monde avec plus d'1 milliard de consommateurs. Les objectifs de la ZLECAF comprennent l'élimination de 90% des droits de douane entre les membres des pays respectifs, la réduction et la simplification des procédures administratives, la libre circulation des personnes et des marchandises. Selon les prévisions, cette initiative permettra la hausse du commerce intra-africain de 60% d'ici 2022 et aura un impact concret sur le PIB des pays participants. De plus, la facilitation du commerce interrégional, intercontinental conduira à une augmentation estimée à 81% des exportations. Le continent bénéficiera des réchauffements de sa compétitivité sur le marché international et mènera une économie continentale plus résiliente, inclusive et durable. Il est nécessaire d'en faire une opportunité et saisir cette occasion pour déclencher une révolution numérique en Afrique et dépasser les obstacles, je dis bien les obstacles de l'insuffisance en connectivité. Le présent sommet devrait donc s'inscrire dans cette optique et favoriser la multiplication des contacts des partenaires de la communauté d'affaires africaine. Mais le plus important, ce sont les leaders politiques qui doivent aussi accompagner cette stratégie de multiplication des contacts en termes de partenariat public-privé. Les discussions de ce sommet viseront également à débattre des défis auxquels nos pays devront faire face dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre efficace de la ZLECAF et la nécessité de mettre en place des réformes politique majeure. Le secteur privé devra saisir les opportunités de la CEDECAF, créer afin de provoquer le dialogue avec le partenariat public-privé, afin d'encourager des réformes politiques en tant que précurseur d'environnement commercial dynamique pour une croissance et un développement économique réel. Il sera plus que jamais primordial de promouvoir le rôle collaboratif du secteur privé africain et d'encourager un processus de gouvernance participative. Créer et promouvoir un environnement propice aux affaires en Afrique est crucial pour la transformation économique du continent. Pour la réussite de ces démarches, certains des points essentiels comprennent le renforcement de la transparence, de la lutte contre la corruption pour améliorer l'environnement des affaires. Il est important de rappeler que le respect de l'état de droit, la garantie du système juridique solide encouragera les opérateurs et les investisseurs à avoir la confiance nécessaire pour s'engager dans le commerce transfrontalier. Je voudrais terminer mes propos pour dire qu'il est important, c'est vraiment important pour que nous puissions faire avancer nos différents états d'esprit et de faire surtout valoir nos droits pour que le secteur privé et le secteur public puissent travailler main dans la main. I just want to say, I'm pleased to inform also that a part of collective action plan will be launched, a call of proposal draft model law of the Bill of Rights enabling business environment in Africa amongst African business community. I could not be able to finish all what I have to say, but again and again, I want to thank the head of the state who has been giving his time, the business community, the Manufacturer Association, Afro Champion, CODA, and I will welcome you again to the summit. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf Dawale. I think the over 200 participants who are on this online video program now feels absolutely welcome. I think you have thrown down the gauntlet about what will make a successful implementation. Your keyword in your remarks, the implementation, the enabling environment, and the public-private partnerships as critical to achieve the objectives of this. So thank you very much for setting the tone and creating the enabling environment for our keynote address to be made right now. Let me tell you that it is a singular honor to introduce our keynote speaker, His Excellency Mohamedou Issoufou, the President of Niger. Now, normally a president needs no introduction, but I do want to say that I am absolutely amazed, Mr. President, at the role that you have played in bringing to birth the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. I almost think that you may have a midwife status in giving birth to this, because you've been president since 2011 and been a champion of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. You've kept a fine eye on the legal text and as well as the annexures of this. You have hosted in 2017, the third meeting of the AU Ministers of Trade, the sixth meeting of the negotiators of the Free Trade Agreement, the third meeting of the senior trade officials, and in 2019 again, you hosted the launch of the operational phase at the 12th Extraordinary Summit of the African Union in Niger. I think that you are probably on that basis alone the most appropriate speaker to deliver the keynote address. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais, ma qualité de ministre d'État, directeur de cabinet du président de la République, qui a été dépêché pour vous livrer le contenu de son message. Et avant ce message, je voudrais, en son nom, adresser un joyeux anniversaire à toutes les femmes en cette journée du 8 mars 2020. Mais je voudrais également, comme par un hasard de calendrier, souligner que le président Mamadou Issoufou a reçu en ce jour, 8 mars 2020, le prix Mo Ibrahim pour le leadership et la bonne gouvernance. Je voudrais, en honneur à tous, lui adresser nos vives félicitations. Ceci étant, je m'en vais vous livrer le contenu du message qu'il a bien voulu préparer à l'occasion de cette réunion. Son Excellence Madame Vera, secrétaire générale exécutive de la Commission des Nations Unies pour l'Afrique, Son Excellence Monsieur Wankele, secrétaire général de la ZLECAF, Dr Amani Foo, président de l'Africa Business Council, Monsieur le Président de l'ACO, Mesdames et Messieurs les ambassadeurs et anciens ministres, Monsieur le Président de l'Association des universités africaines, Mesdames, Messieurs du secteur privé. Le présent sommet du secteur privé africain se tient presque 2 ans après l'entrée en vigueur de l'accord de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, ZLECAf. En ma qualité de champion de l'Union africaine pour la ZLECAf, je tiens à remercier tous nos partenaires stratégiques, dont entre autres la Commission économique des Nations Unies pour l'Afrique, la Banque africaine d'exportation et d'importation, pour tout l'appui et l'accompagnement dans l'organisation du présent sommet. Je voudrais souligner aussi l'importance de cet événement car il cadre parfaitement aux activités à entreprendre une fois la mise en œuvre de l'accord ait été effective. Je tiens à féliciter le monde des affaires qui marque ainsi sa volonté commune d'aller de l'avant dans la concrétisation réelle du marché unique africain solide et compétitif. Comme vous le savez, la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine constitue une opportunité pour nos pays de réaliser l'intégration économique et sociale dans l'objectif d'intégrer la chaîne de valeur mondiale, de réduire la pauvreté et promouvoir l'inclusion. En effet, d'ici 2035, selon la Banque mondiale, l'impact de la zone de libre-échange continentale sur la réduction de la pauvreté serait de l'ordre de 30 millions intra-africains, généreront des revenus additionnels de l'ordre de 450 milliards de dollars et augmentera le volume des exportations de 29%. Toutes ces opportunités pour les entrepreneurs, les industriels et les travailleurs africains concourent à la création des conditions d'émergence de notre continent. C'est l'occasion pour les chefs d'entreprise africains et les investisseurs en général de jouer leur partition afin de saisir cette opportunité. Mesdames et messieurs, la ZLECAf n'est pas un projet isolé. Elle constitue, avec les autres programmes de l'agenda 2063, un tout cohérent. C'est le cas du programme détaillé de développement de l'agriculture en Afrique, du programme de développement des infrastructures en Afrique, PIDA, du plan d'action pour le développement industriel accéléré de l'Afrique, AIDA, de la vision minière africaine, VMA, et du plan d'action pour l'intensification du commerce intra-africain, BIAT. La mise en œuvre de tous ces plans et programmes permettra de booster la croissance économique du continent et de créer des emplois, notamment pour les jeunes, dont 10 à 12 millions arrivent chaque année sur le marché du travail. C'est la seule voie qui nous permettra d'exploiter la structure démographique du continent, notamment de transformer son actif démographique en dividende économique. Mesdames et messieurs, autant les dirigeants politiques africains ont imaginé et lancé la ZLECAf avec abnégation et courage, autant la mise en œuvre de l'implémentation de la ZLECAf nécessite la détermination, l'engagement, l'esprit d'innovation, tant du secteur public que du secteur privé. C'est dire que pour transformer toutes les opportunités que présente la ZLECAf en activités créatrices de valeur et de richesse, les gouvernements, les partenaires techniques et financiers, ainsi que le secteur privé africain doivent s'investir chacun dans ses prérogatives afin de rendre l'environnement macroéconomique favorable aux investissements dans le secteur des infrastructures physiques, du capital humain, ainsi que dans la technologie. Ces réformes nécessaires à l'amélioration du climat des affaires seront certes difficiles et même souvent douloureuses, mais les récompenses attendues seront substantielles. Mesdames et messieurs, le débat autour du présent sommet concerne le rôle et les leviers nécessaires à booster la croissance économique, la transformation et la compétitivité des économies africaines. S'agissant du Niger, nombre de réformes ont été engagées pour attirer des investisseurs privés, pour soutenir la transformation de son économie. Depuis 2011, suite à mon ascension à la magistrature suprême, le gouvernement du Niger met en œuvre un programme intitulé « Programme de renaissance du Niger ». Ce programme, qui comporte 8 axes prioritaires, vise à faire de l'économie nigérienne une économie dynamique, génératrice d'une croissance forte et inclusive, de nature à réduire la pauvreté et à promouvoir le développement économique et social. De 2011 à 2020, grâce à la mise en œuvre du programme de renaissance, le Niger a enregistré un taux de croissance moyen de 6%. Les perspectives pour les 5 prochaines années laissent entrevoir un taux moyen de croissance de 7%. Pour conforter le dynamisme de cette économie, notre gouvernement s'est engagé dans une politique de réforme pour promouvoir le secteur privé et l'investissement direct étranger. C'est ainsi que de 2012 à 2020, notre pays a gagné 44 rangs sur le classement Doing Business, opéré par la Banque mondiale, passant ainsi de la 176e à 132e place. Les principales réformes ont porté sur la facilité de création d'entreprises à travers la réduction des procédures, le délai et coût de création d'entreprises, domaine dans lequel le Niger était classé premier en Afrique en 2018 et 24e au niveau mondial. La mise en place d'un bureau d'information sur le crédit, BIC, et d'autres facilités d'accès au financement. La simplification des procédures de paiement des impôts. La modernisation des procédures douanières et l'installation du tribunal de commerce de Niamey. Le cadre législatif et réglementaire des affaires a été également amélioré à travers notamment l'adoption d'une loi sur les partenariats publics-privés, l'adoption du Code des investissements, du Code minier, du Code pétrolier et l'adhésion à l'Agence multilatérale des garanties des investissements MIGA. Le Niger est devenu de ce fait un des pays africains les plus réformateurs en matière de facilitation des affaires. Le taux de croissance de 7% que j'énonçais tantôt sera tiré, entre autres, par l'exploitation du potentiel minier et pétrolier et la fourniture régulière et croissante de l'énergie électrique basée sur la valorisation de nos ressources énergétiques locales. En effet, au Niger, le secteur minier présente des potentialités importantes pour les investissements privés, nationaux et internationaux. En matière de ressources minières, le Niger est traditionnellement connu depuis les années 1970 pour l'exploitation de l'uranium. Mais le potentiel minier est largement sous-exploité. Le Niger, comme l'Afrique, dispose d'un sous-sol riche avec diverses ressources minérales telles que les minéraux stratégiques, uranium, les métaux précieux, or, les métaux de base, fer, cuivre, chrome, nickel, les minéraux industriels, phosphate, calcaire industriel, sel, etc. Les minéraux lourds, titane, les pierres ornementales et matériaux de construction. Le gouvernement du Niger, en concertation, en étroite collaborateur avec différents acteurs du secteur, a élaboré une politique minière tendant à améliorer le rendement des activités extractives, à attirer des investisseurs nationaux et étrangers et surtout à garantir une production nationale capable de générer des richesses et créer des emplois durables. Pour valoriser toutes ces ressources minières, le Niger a entrepris une vaste politique d'ouverture du secteur pour développer notamment l'investissement minier étranger. Le pays a créé un climat propice à l'investissement à travers un cadre législatif réglementaire simple, clair, transparent, compétitif et non discriminatoire et a su attirer des investisseurs pour la relance et le développement, aussi bien des filières traditionnelles de l'uranium et de la cimenterie que de la recherche et de l'exploitation de l'or, du fer, du marbre, du thorium, de la cassétérite, du charbon et du titane. Dans le domaine de l'énergie, les opportunités existent dans l'hydroélectricité, le charbon, le pétrole et le solaire, le Niger étant l'un des pays les plus ensoleillés, le pétrole les plus ensoleillés. D'ici 2025, nous envisageons construire 1000 MW de centrales solaires et 2000 en 2035, électrifier 6000 villages. Nous envisageons construire une centrale à charbon de 600 MW et rénover une centrale de 50 MW, intensifier les lignes de transmission et devenir un hub énergétique pour les pays du Sahel et de la CEDEAO. D'énormes progrès ont été d'ailleurs enregistrés en matière de stabilité politique, de bonne gouvernance et de démocratie. Pour finir, je tiens à vous annoncer que le Niger, en particulier, et l'Afrique en général, ont plus d'atouts pour promouvoir une croissance durable et soutenable. Le potentiel est encore largement inexploité en sa juste valeur. L'utilisation de nouvelles technologies ainsi que le processus de produits plus élaborés pourrait contribuer amplement à la croissance économique de nos États dans le respect des normes environnementales et humaines. Dans vos réflexions et travaux autour des thèmes suivants: l'Afrique, nouvel espace pour faire des affaires avec plus de simplification. Quel type d'investissement pour une transformation et une croissance durable en Afrique? Opportunités pour faire des affaires à fort impact développemental et d'emploi. Innovation en Afrique. J'invite le secteur privé à travailler avec le secteur public de nos États dans un esprit gagnant-gagnant et à venir au Niger et en Afrique pour qu'ensemble, nous exploitons ces ressources et concevons un partenariat fondé sur le respect mutuel et l'intérêt de tous. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Thank you very, very much. I must say that speaking on behalf of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Niger, I think we have heard a very, very clear message that the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is to reduce poverty, unemployment, and disease across the African continent by rising its resource base, investment base, and its intra-African agenda for infrastructure, agriculture, industrialization, and trade, and so forth. I think the President, in his remarks to us, has also addressed that demographic, the youth demographic, that could either be a curse or a blessing, and he has certainly said we need to turn our youth bulge into a blessing of human capital and human resources if we develop it properly and deploy it properly. I think there is no clearer message than the laboratory that is also Niger to try out and to make sure that the plan can be implemented there and therefore across all of Africa. I want to also say to all the participants, we are now at 252 and growing by the minute. And I want to say that paging through the chats, it's clear that we have a continental-wide representation from all over Africa. We have sectoral representation, academics, the media, the private sector, the SMME sector, and all of those kind of people. And I also think that if we were to go through that and to do some matchmaking, we may find that the chat group alongside the formal presentations could be very, very useful to match up people who have certain skills elsewhere in Africa with people who have certain needs elsewhere in Africa. I think I want to end up by thanking the three panelists, including the spokesperson for His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Niger, for your remarks, for the depth and quality of your remarks, but also very importantly, for keeping broadly within the time. You have not exceeded your time. It was us who have exceeded our time in introducing you and in introducing the topics. So having said all of that, it is now my pleasure, with the permission of the organizers, to hand over to my fellow moderator, Bunmi Makinwa, and to ask him to take over this. And when he takes over, you will find him a specialist in communications for leadership, advisor to governments, the UN, to business, nonprofits, experience in population, HIV and AIDS, the World Health Organization, and someone who has studied on 3 continents, Africa, the USA, and Europe. And so over to you, Bunmi, and I will join you in the 3rd session of the day and look forward to your management of the 2nd session. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you very, very much, Ambassador Rasu. I feel that I'm a fellow South African, having spent almost a decade of my professional life in that country, and where I still belong very much. You came to New York as I was living in New York for Johannesburg, moving the office of the UN at that time to South Africa, but when you became ambassador to the US for South Africa, ambassador of the US of the country. Thank you for moderating this session so well. You set a goal that we almost keep to as moderators, keeping people to time, and even moderating the president and managing to keep him to time. I think I must thank the Excellency for doing that for you. And I hope that our colleagues who will moderate coming up right now, we take a cue from that and keep it as short as possible, but again, as powerful as the president did. So with that introduction and joining my, those who have spoken earlier to acknowledge the International Women's Day, I went through the various sessions that we have, and I noticed that every session has at least a woman's name. And I hope the women will participate and participate vigorously. I wish we could have more women, especially for this session, since today is a special day for women. But be that as it may, that is how I would like to structure this session. We have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Stephen Karingi is no longer going to be part of this session, from what I've been told by one of our organizers. So instead of 4 panelists, we shall have 3. In a way, that's an advantage, but again, it's a disadvantage in the sense that we lose important wisdom and knowledge that Dr. Stephen Karingi would have brought on board. So I hope I'm right that Dr. Karingi is not here for this session. Okay, I take that silence as meaning yes. So we have 3 panelists, and I would like to introduce them before we start. I don't do it one by one. Did I hear somebody speak?
No, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. I will introduce the 3 panelists that we shall have, and after that, I will then call on them one by one without any further introduction. Our first panelist is His Excellency, Mr. Wamkele Mene, another fellow South African, and currently, I'm actually a Nigerian, but I feel like I'm South African because I spend a lot of time in South Africa. So I hope the Nigerians listening will not think that I've abandoned my nationality. Mr. Wamkele Mene is currently the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat that is based in Accra in Ghana. And he had a lot of experience working in the area of trade and industry. He was in the Department of Trade and Industry in South Africa as a chief director. He was also a director in international trade and investment law in that same department. Mr. Wamkele had served as Deputy Ambassador with the South African Permanent Mission to the World Trade Organization in Geneva, to which the highly respected Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has just been appointed as the Director General. So Mr. Wamkele had served with that body in the past. And with all that experience, he brings to bear as the first Secretary General of the AFCFTA Secretariat. We wish him luck and we congratulate him for this position, and we listen to what he offers us on ease of doing business, what this new AFCFTA agreement brings to bear in helping to streamline trade and international trade, especially in Africa. The second panelist is Dr. Amani Foo. Dr. Amani Foo, our lady and the first lady to speak today. With due respect, we look forward to your participation. You come with a lot of experience in the area of business. Dr. Foo is currently the president of the International Federation of Business and Professional Women. She is also president of the Egyptian Business Women Association. She is president of the Organization of Women in Trade, the Cairo chapter. She is president of the African Alliance for Women Empowerment. If I continue to mention the organizations that Dr. Foo heads, who will spend a long time here. So I'll just say that he has a lot of experience, a lot of organizations and institutions where she was as an investor, the leader, the entrepreneur, the founder of several centers and institutions. We look forward to hear from you, Dr. Foo. The third speaker is Mr. Espion Joaquim Oliveira Gomez. Mr. Espion is currently the Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. He comes to this position with a lot of experience, more than 30 years, in building, organizing, nurturing, growing micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. He was formerly Deputy Executive Director of the Caribbean Export Development Agency. He has a lot of experience in ICT, in tourism, and he had served his country, the Dominican Republic, previously as a Deputy Minister. So with that introduction of the three panelists, I will call on Mr. Winkele to start off in a succinct, short, but I'm sure impactful presentation. So it's over to you, sir.
All right, the Secretary General couldn't make it, so he sent in a goodwill letter to us. Is that okay if we read it to the participants and everyone here?
Certainly, you may do so now.
All right, give me a second. Let me see if I'll be able to share my screen and get everybody to see the screen. Please, can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
All right, so this is the letter that the Secretary General of AFTA sent to us. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us. He's got equally important meeting. So he sent out this letter and I'm going to read to everybody. My name is Benjamin Achampon, and I'm the CEO of Wealth Masters Group, a business advisory group that we base in London here, UK. And we are part of the organizing team for this African Private Sector Summit. So I'm reading the Secretary General's letter. After creating one African market, this is to kindly provide a goodwill message to the Private Sector Summit on doing business under the AFTA, and particularly on the topic, Africa's new landscape for doing business with ease, the African Continental Free Trade Area scheduled for today, 8th March 2021. I would like to apologize for not participating in this very important virtual event. This is due to conflicting engagement beyond my control. Trading under the agreement establishing the AFTA commenced on 1st of January 2021. A single market for 1.3 billion Africans with a combined GDP of 3.5 trillion United States dollars is now operational. As I've mentioned in my previous interventions, this agreement creates a predictable environment for the private sector to trade and invest in Africa. In this regard, the private sector is critical in the AFTA implementation process. We at the Secretariat are working with our strategic partners to develop deliberate interventions to actualize this. One of the key tools to ease business will be the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPSS, that will enable transacting business among traders in the continent using their local currencies. We are partnering with Afrexim Bank on this, among other facilities. In addition, as I mentioned earlier in my swearing-in statement, women and young Africans will be at the heart of the AfTA implementation process. In this regard, this private sector summit has coincided with a very important day, the International Women's Day, that is celebrated globally. Women play a key role in improving livelihoods at households level, and you may all recall, the December 2020 summit directed that a protocol on women should be developed and annexed to the AfTA agreement. Work is already ongoing in that regard. Lastly, I wish to inform you that we are working with commercial banks on the continent to establish a finance fund facility to help women participate more in the AfTA. I wish you all fruitful deliberation. That is from the Excellency, the Secretary General of the AfTA Secretariat. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for bringing that message to us. I will call on Dr. Amani Foo to speak to us. Thank you. Now, I will call on Mr. Cipian to not only look at the AFCFTA, but even look beyond the African continent, given his experience in the Caribbean and internationally, to see how these new instruments can enlarge the African market and facilitate trading across borders. Thank you, sir.
Hello, can you hear me fine? I will be sharing a presentation. So first of all, I am really happy to be here today, and I really want to congratulate all my African sisters in the International Days for Women. So thank you very much. I have been working with Africa since 1990, mainly through the OECD cooperation. So I'm very excited to participate in this meeting today, invited by my friends from the East African Chamber of Commerce. So grand welcomes to Charles Kahutu. So first of all, for those that don't know us, we are the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. We became an international organization in April last year, and we evolved from the ACP group, which was founded via the Georgetown Agreement in 1975. Nowadays, we're very proud of having 79 members from Africa, from the Caribbean, and the Pacific. What we do is to promote the sustainable development of our members and the global integration into the world economy with the ultimate objective of reducing and eventually eradicating poverty. Youth and women are at the center of all our actions, and we are guided by the leadership of His Excellency, Mr. George Rebelo Pinto Chicote, who's our Secretary General. He's from Angola. He's former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Angola, and he has a lot of experience in promoting regional integration. So we work mainly in the area of promoting a joint OECD-PSU framework for private sector development with many partners, as you can see, the African Union, with the Pan-African Chambers, Pan-African Chamber of Commerce of Industry, and other ones here today. What we work in 4 pillars. The first one that was mentioned today a lot was improving the business environment of our countries. We have a special facility now called the ICR facility, implemented by the German cooperation with the French, Dutch, and Belgian cooperation. We seek to strengthen intermediary organizations. In this way, we work with chambers of commerce and associations of industries throughout Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. We try to promote the informal sector by having specialized financial schemes to allow them to fund their way through and also to join the formal economy. And we also work in promoting more formal investment through blending and working with banks as the African Development Bank and the European Investment Bank, and also with European development finance institutions that manage some of the facilities we have put in place. This strategy is based on many things. It's based first on the need to share best practices and experiences, the need to ensure that our products actually get to the market. Like I said, also promoting youth and women entrepreneurship and other vulnerable people. And among all, a constant, permanent public-private sector dialogue and cooperation at all levels, national, regional, and OECD levels. We believe that quality is the cornerstone of competitiveness. In this sense, the European Union and the OECD have collaborated with ARSO, the African Organizations for Standardization, in an initiative that sought to promote legislative reform, improve the business climate, foster the adoption and use of standards, facilitate market access, and increase the technical capacity of our own institutions, also from associations and producers themselves. These actions contribute to the enterprise competitiveness of our countries, but also to social cohesion and economic inclusion, and also ensure that our consumers in Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific have access to good quality goods and services. So it's important to invest in quality in order to be able to earn markets and protect our own markets. We believe it's a time for a paradigm shift. We are living in unprecedented times. We have seen COVID has shown us that no country, region, or continent alone can go by itself. We have to work together. So we have to develop new policies to address these challenges confronted by our SMEs. We want to target the more vulnerable groups, also taking development outside of the capitals to the rural areas, and working also with ethnic minorities. We're trying to foster social, economic, and cultural inclusion. Culture is also a big business, so we also want to promote a lot of investment in culture, not only as an intangible good, but also as a tangible good that can be sold and bought. And we want to ensure through that the personal development and well-being of our people, but also a most prosperous, peaceful, and fair society. We believe that we can win in globalization by really embracing our own roots. There are many roots that really join the OECPS group. I personally feel very African. I have traveled and worked throughout Eastern and Southern Africa a lot and helped a lot of SMEs there. And every time I travel to Africa, I feel at home. I was saying, globalization has changed the way we live and do business. Technological innovations have shrunk the dimensions of space and time. And now our companies are faced with losing preferential access in the traditional markets while having a competition in our own markets. So we need to find innovative solutions to survive. So we propose to establish this competitiveness in this je ne sais pas quoi that define us as OECPS, as Africans, as Caribbean, as Pacific, using where, what, and how, and transforming that into articulated stories to targeted consumers, to supply the world with unique products and services. Where is the market segments in which we have a competitive advantage? Niche, luxury, free trade, organic, diaspora, healthy. However, in order to tackle these markets, we need to understand the trends and expectations on consumers in those markets who are heavily investing in market research, market knowledge. What is the products and services we offer? We should not always seek to compete in low prices or high volumes. We have to include in quality, specificity. We have to adapt the products to the needs of the target markets. That includes labeling, packaging, taste, standards. That is very important. So we propose that you work with us to sell a story and provide a dream. When you go to a supermarket in Europe, it's difficult to differentiate yourself. So you have to catch the eye of the person selling a story. How? Basically, we want to supply the global market with a good value proposition. This good value proposition will make that your products have to be accessible, have to be appealing, they have to be authentic, different from the others, innovative, consistent. Every time a consumer buys your product, it should always be the same. It has to be convenient, has to have quality, it has to be safe. We prefer to have it branded so consumers keep on coming, and the volume that you have should be adapted to your target market. We wanted to give you some examples, concrete examples how we're implementing the strategy. Right now, we have several initiatives. Like you already mentioned, the Investment Climate Reform Facility working in climate reform throughout the OECPS, but we also have the Boost Africa initiative with over 60 million euros, which is implemented with the African Development Bank and the European Investment Bank. It seeks to enable young African entrepreneurs to have access to capital. We are also working in a special program, which is called Farmers Organization for ACP. It's 40 million euros. We're working with IFED, the Pan-African Organization of Farmers, and various regional and national farmer organizations throughout Africa. We're also working in Fit for Market program with our partners called ACP with 50 million. We support our states, mainly African exporters of fruits and vegetables, to understand and apply the requirements of sanitary and phytosanitary requirements for the products in Europe. And finally, the Trade.com 2 program with 40 million euros, it helps our SMEs to diversify their export base. We implemented specific programs with UNECA and COMESA with very specific companies to allow regional and global value chains. We're also working in future actions, which we would like to have your support. We really are working with or discussing with Digitrade in order that they will allow accumulation of rules of origin between the different regimes which Africa uses to export to the European Union. Because as you might know, the system of everything but arms, EVA, and the economic partnership agreements cannot share rules of origin. By having these two different regimes, sometimes within the same region, you'll find yourself that you are not able really to create strong value chains. So we really are talking to the European Commission to see if they will allow this accumulation of rules of origin and create real regional and continental value chains. We're also working to expand it, to expanding the work we did with Cole ACP, but not only for fruits and vegetables and not only for commodities, but for all products exported by our people, an early warning alert mechanism that will allow us to know what new regulations might be put in place by our partners in the European Union first and the United Kingdom also. Those two markets first, and they try to expand it to other markets in a way of understanding which pesticides, which regulations, which controls will be enforced before they happen so our companies can adapt. We're also working with our private sector organizations, building a business forum that would allow our private sector to discuss with our partners in Europe on how we implement our programs. We're talking with the East Chamber of Commerce, East African Chamber of Commerce, with the NEPAD Business Council, with the Federation of West African Chamber of Commerce, and with UNEPASE, which is the Employers Federation of Central Africa. In that business forum also, PIPSO and CARICHAM are representatives from the Pacific and the Caribbean. And the idea is to have a structured dialogue, private, and public-private in the implementation of all our agreements, trade and cooperation. We are also working in the establishment in an agricultural value chain program with 154 million euros, working to empower actors in 11 value chains, many of those very important in Africa, like cocoa and others, where we're working in the creation of an African Mineral Development Center in Conakry, Guinea. One of our speakers was talking a lot about the minerals and the richness of our minerals for exports. We're really working into that, capacity building, training standards. And we will soon launch an OECPS-wide trade and investment portal with UNCTAD in order to allow our companies really to have better data on their own countries as well, and also with a view of penetrating other markets. Having said this, what we're trying to do together with you and with our partners, I really wanted to salute some of the persons here today. Like I said, I wanted to salute Mr. Charles Kahutu from the East African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Mr. Aminou Akadiri from the Fédération des Chambres de Commerce et Industrie d'Afrique de l'Ouest, with whom I have shared a lot. I hope my other partners from Central Africa, Southern Africa are also there. And the way we're really trying to work together is working at a national level to improve the competitiveness of our countries, together trying to build a strong regional market, working in continental markets, especially in the African Free Trade area, trying to exchange best practices among all of the regions, Africa, Caribbean, and the Pacific, and hopefully we can conquer the world together as brothers and sisters. Having said that, gracias, thank you, merci, obrigado, thank you. Danke, Jarujef, Asante, Binag. Thank you very much.
The Association of African Universities, AAU, Africa's apex higher education organization, invites stakeholders to its 15th quadrennial General Conference from 5th to the 8th of July 2021. The theme is the future of African higher education. The conference will be held virtually and hosted by the Government of Ghana under 6 sub-themes as follows. Sub-theme 1, the future of African higher education post-COVID-19. Sub-theme 2, contributions of African higher education institutions to addressing the challenges linked to the COVID-19 pandemic. Sub-theme 3, contributions of African higher education institutions in achieving sustainable development goals. Sub-theme 4, funding of African higher education institutions in the face of unpredictable economy. Sub-theme 5, mainstreaming e-learning and the digital divide. Sub-theme 6, contributions of the diaspora to African higher education. Expected participants include ministries of higher education, academics, researchers and research organizations, regional economic communities, regional educational bodies like IUCEA, CAMES, and SARUWA, the organized private sector and captains of industry, development partners, and other education stakeholders. The AAU's 15th Quadrennial General Conference is here. To register, kindly go to the link below, and for further enquiries, please visit the website www.event.aau.org/GenCon or send an email to secgen@aau.org and copy info@aau.org. AAU, the voice of higher education in Africa.
L'Association des universités africaines, AUA, l'organisation faîtière de l'enseignement supérieur en Afrique, invite toutes les parties prenantes à sa 15e conférence générale quadriennale qui se tiendra du 5 au 8 juillet 2021. Le thème de cette conférence est l'avenir de l'enseignement supérieur africain. La conférence se tiendra virtuellement et ce sera accueilli par le gouvernement du Ghana. Elle comprend les 6 sous-thèmes principaux suivants. Sous-thème 1, l'avenir de l'enseignement supérieur africain après la COVID-19. Sous-thème 2, contribution des établissements d'enseignement supérieur africains pour le relevé des défis liés à la pandémie COVID-19. Sous-thème 3, contribution des établissements d'enseignement supérieur africains à la réalisation des objectifs de développement durable. Sous-thème 4, financement des établissements d'enseignement supérieur africains face à une économie imprévisible. Sous-thème 5, intégration de l'apprentissage en ligne et de la fracture numérique. Sous-thème 6, contribution de la diaspora à l'enseignement supérieur africain. Les participants attendus comprenant entre autres les ministères de l'enseignement supérieur, des universitaires, les chercheurs et organismes de recherche en Afrique et au-delà, les organismes éducatifs régionaux comme la IUCEA, la CAMES, la SARUWA, le secteur privé organisé et les chefs d'industrie, les partenaires de développement, agences et organisations internationales et d'autres acteurs de l'éducation. La 15e conférence générale quadriennale de l'AUA est là. Pour vous inscrire et participer, veuillez visiter la tinyurl.com/AAUGC 2021 et pour plus d'informations sur la conférence, veuillez visiter le site web event.aau.org/GenCon ou envoyer un courriel à secgen@aau.org et copier info@aau.org. L'AUA, la voie de l'enseignement supérieur en Afrique.
Welcome to another episode of the CGC Show, brought to you by the Association of African Universities here in Accra, Ghana. My name is Haja Omi and I am your host. You can join in the conversation by following us on our social media platforms at @A_TV on Twitter, Association of African Universities on Facebook and YouTube, and at AUTV Official on Instagram. A big thank you going out to GD Makeover GH for my makeup and Akosia Collections GH for my outfit. Today we'll be discussing banking as a career. My guest is here in the studios and ready. I hope you at home are ready. We'll be back after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. If you just tuned in, you are watching the CGC Show on AUTV. And today, my guest is in the person of Mr. Cletus Tanye. Yeah. He is a multinational banker here to tell us all and everything we need to know about banking as a career. Mr. Cletus Tanye, welcome on the show.
Thank you, Ajua. I'm excited to be here
Thank you so
talk
much.
about banking.
It's my pleasure hosting you. Yeah. So you are a multinational banker. How has the journey been for you?
I've been in banking for the past over 18 years now. Wow. And I'm a chartered banker. And also I have an MBA in finance, and I did a first degree in banking as well. I started my banking journey as in the sales department of a multinational bank, mainly to get clients for the bank. After a while, I moved on into credit risk management, which is mainly managing loans and assets of the bank. Wow. And then I moved to a local bank where I worked also with their corporate department. And currently, I'm doing operational risk management in a multinational bank. Okay. Yes. So that has been my 18 years journey in banking in a snapshot.
I believe it's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been. Yeah.
So you have been in the banking industry for 18 years.
Yes.
How do you see the industry so far?
I think the industry has grown tremendously. I mean, when you look at the past, when we joined at the time in the early 2000s, it was when you had an influx of banks coming from our neighboring country, Nigeria, coming to set up shops here. And so it created an avenue for a lot of the youth who had come out of the university to get a place of employment. So since then, a lot has happened, and until recently, we had some banking crisis, which led to other banks being closed down. But it's an industry that continues to grow in leaps and bounds, and so I think it's a good industry. Yeah.
What influenced you into choosing banking as a career?
It may surprise you. I actually didn't set out to be a banker. I mean, in my life, I had thought of becoming a pilot because my dad worked with Ghana Airways then. Okay. And so all along till I got to the university. And then I had the opportunity of either doing administration or law. I mean, the two options. So I went to do administration. And somewhere along the line, I just felt that, fortunately, at that time, looking around, banking was a bit fashionable, and so we didn't know what it entails. But I just said, okay, once I'm doing administration, some of the options included banking, accounting, marketing. Why not do banking? So that's how my banking journey started. Yeah.
We have heard a lot about bankers. I personally know bankers to be working in a bank, taking money, helping us cash out and all of that.
Exactly.
What exactly do bankers do? And what does it mean to be a banker?
Okay, basically, banking is just about moving surplus units. That when I say surplus unit, funds from people who have excess funds into deficit units. That is, people who do not, or companies that do not have enough, but have brilliant ideas and want to execute it and do not know how to go about it. So banking is about intermediating in the financial sector. So what it entails is you sit in between, the banker sits in the middle. Those who have excess funds bring their funds. Those who need funds to go about their project, the banker assess the viability of their project and then extend that funds to them at a margin. So banking basically at the rudimentary level is all about intermediation, financial intermediation. Bringing those who have excess funds and do not know what to do with it, link them up to those who have deficit units. That is, those who do not have but have brilliant projects they want to execute. And that is all about banking. Some would go further where you have investment banking, which goes further to talk about raising capital and other things for bigger projects. And so basically banking is about bringing to, so banking essentially is to ensure that brilliant projects or ideas that we bring up are executed by providing financing. Yeah.
Okay. For someone who do not know what the difference between a chartered banker and a normal banker is, kindly tell us the difference between the two.
Yes, the banking as it exists now, so when somebody says you are a chartered banker, it means that you have gone through the professional training. There's a Chartered Institute of Bankers. We used to be affiliated to the Chartered Institute of Bankers in UK, but it's now autonomous and it's been so for some years now. You've gone through those training, professional exams have been written, and you are certified as a chartered banker. That is a chartered banker. But because if you work in a bank, most cases we call you a banker, but that does not mean that you are a chartered banker. Just as you have chartered accountants, and you also have people working in the finance department being called accountants. Yeah, so that's basically the difference. So if you want to be called a chartered banker, then you have to go through that training. Chartered Institute of Bankers, there are several levels, just like there is a Chartered Institute of Chartered Accountants has various levels. Once you finish the final level and you graduate, you are certified as a chartered banker. Yes.
How long can it take one to be chartered?
It depends on you as an individual, how you want to study. There are some people who can take 2 years or 3 years to go through it and they're able to do it. Some could take about 6 years, depending on their level. I took almost 6 years because I had finished my first degree. I was working. I intended to do, at some point in time, I was doing my master's, and so I had to slow down on some of the courses. So it depends on you. And I think that, so if you want to become a banker, you don't necessarily need to study banking at the first degree level. The most important thing is that you do courses that gives you and perform very well, whatever course, because in the bank you have engineers there, you have people who have backgrounds in agriculture. I have worked with bankers who are pharmacists who went to do pharmacy but found themselves in the bank and now are working. So you can become a banker working in the bank, but not a chartered banker because you have not gone through the professional training. Yes.
I would want you to talk about some of the characteristics of a banker. If a student wants to become a banker, what are some of the qualities or skills that he or she needs to have before venturing into that sector?
Probably we'll look at the soft skills and also the... I think that the soft skills now, it's all about attitude. Number one, banking has to do with a fiduciary relationship. Somebody has given you money to keep. And so we are looking at people with integrity. You have to have integrity. Because as you mentioned earlier on, you'll be seeing a lot of money, but that is not your money. And so integrity is very important. You must be hardworking, and you must also be good at figures. And those are the basic soft skills. Aside that, as I indicated earlier, for the first degree level, you don't need to be concerned very much about the courses that you do. All you need to do is to do very well. And then even during the first degree, if you still want to become a chartered banker, you can take the Chartered Institute of Bankers courses along the line, so that by the time you graduate, you would have been somewhere very close to chartering, and then you can charter afterwards, and then you do. So basically, you don't necessarily need to do a particular course. I was fortunate to do banking at the first degree level. What it does is that it helped me when I joined after my first degree, when I joined the bank, when decision making is done at a higher level. Because of your training, you understand it better than somebody who probably did not do banking. But it doesn't make much of a difference, because at the entry level, the work that you do in the banking might not necessarily require a degree in banking. Yeah. For instance, if you are taken as a teller at the beginning, you don't need all the courses that you have done, law relating to banking, risk management, and all those courses. You don't need them to. It only aids you to be aware of the risk associated with the work that you're doing, but you would not apply it as it will be done at a higher level. Yeah.
One, in preparing yourself for the job market, I'm talking about students.
Yes.
Getting all of these skills, acquainting themselves with all of these skills. What exactly do recruiters look out for in picking a candidate to occupy a space?
I think they look out for your, number one, you should have, they're looking at attitude, because as I said, do you have the right attitude towards work? Are you willing, have you schooled yourself in terms of the various software that we use, mainly Office? At your level, it is mainly Office. Do you know how to use Excel, Word, PowerPoint presentation, those basic software? That's all that you need at that level. Yes, because when you enter, different banks have different software they use for different distance. So you can say, I have learned this software, and so I am likely to work in, because a bank may be using a software called FlexQ. There are several banks that use that software. There are others that also use Bank Master, let's put it that way. And so and these are software that unless you are in the bank, you cannot learn them. But what you need is, one, have the necessary attitude, be very alert, be sensitive, and also have integrity. And so whilst in school, ethics, it's very important in banking, the right attitude. For instance, when there's what we call confidentiality in banking. If you are somebody who likes talking a lot, you cannot work in a bank, because you will see a lot, and you have to keep quiet. You would see bank balances that, by the ethics of the profession, you are not supposed to even talk to them, to talk to these balances with even your wife. So that's how, and so they are looking for somebody who can live those ethics of the profession.
So you mentioned some of the softwares that students need to abreast themselves with. You mentioned which one?
Excel, Word, just the normal Office suite. You should know it. You should know how to use it. It's important. And as I said, the other software, once you join the bank, you'll be trained on them. You'll be trained on them. So you don't necessarily need to go and try learning any software. As I said, if you want to become a chartered banker, go through the Chartered Institute of Banking, and also learn from. If you are fortunate and you are in the university and you are in the School of Administration or any other business school where they do banking, it's an added advantage. But that, after completing that, would still not make you a chartered banker. You will still have to go through the Chartered Institute of Banker certification before you can become a chartered banker.
Okay,
yeah,
that's right. You mentioned some skills that students need to familiarize themselves with before. Which particular skill do you think has really helped you? Like in shaping you to become who you are today? You mentioned that you have over 18 years of experience.
Yes.
What is that one skill you think you have that has really helped you scale up in your career?
I think is one, integrity, honesty on the job, and also hard work. Banking involves a lot of hard work. There are things that when I started in banking, when we got in, we're given some jobs that some would feel that, oh, I'm a degree holder, what am I supposed to do? You can even be asked to do photocopy and other things. So the attitude must be right. Once you have the right attitude towards work anywhere, you can fit in. And so you need to develop an attitude, be willing to go the extra mile, because in banking there are times that you would be forced to stay in to do extra because either there is a system glitch that means that you have to stay in and do extra work. At that moment, if you don't have the right attitude, you think that it is punishment, but that is what you need to do to ensure that the organization that has employed you continue to deliver the level of service that they have promised our clients, or we promised our clients. And so those are the things that I would say we should have.
And other areas of socialization in this particular field?
There are. I mean, in banking, you have the Treasury Department, you have credit risk. Credit risk is a unit that mainly manages loans, give out facilities, and also manage the recovery of those facilities. You have Treasury that mainly deal with forex exchange, purchasing and buying, and also manages the bank's balance sheet. I mean, and then you have banking operations. That is the unit that manages the branches, the activities that goes on in the branches. And you have lately operational risk. Operational risk, you are looking at all the processes, the systems, and the people. Are they all aligned? What are the risks that are likely to throw out by virtue of putting probably the wrong person in the wrong place? How do you deal with those risks? So that bit is operational risk. There is also now coming up a very burden area, digital banking. You see that most of the banks are going to digital platforms. So it is very good. So it's opening up avenues for people who have IT backgrounds and who do digital marketing or digital stuff. So that's so such people will also come into the bank, although they've not been trained as bankers, but you need them to be able to drive those digital agendas.
Do you work hand in hand with accountants?
Yes, the banks definitely have finance department. So you want people with accounting background who would also be looking at reconciling various accounts and also managing the finances of the bank, and so you need people with accounting background as well.
All right, I have so many questions for you, but I want us to talk more after the break.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Welcome back. It still is the CUC show on AETV, and we have been discussing banking as a career. And our guest, Mr. Cletus, Tanya.
Yes.
Tanya has spoken a lot on the topic, and he's talked about some of the skills that students will need to equip themselves with before deciding or finishing school and be getting ready for the job market. I'd want you, Mr. Cletus, to talk about why there seems to be a lot of people wanting to join this career path. Unlike other career paths or professions, a lot of people want to do banking. A lot of students will go to university to say, I'm studying banking and finance, I want to be a banker in future.
Yeah.
What do you think has influenced people?
I think in our part of the world, as I started in the early 2000s, when the then President Kufuor came in, there were some banking reforms that were done that allowed for our neighboring country, Nigeria in particular. There was an influx of banks into the country. At that point, a lot of graduates didn't have jobs. They were looking for jobs. So banking job became the easy-to-go area because they were just looking for young graduates, train them, equip them, and then deploy them. And then, so that kind of made a lot of impact. And over the years, these people who went into that area have been able to live very successful life, had families, and live, at least when it comes to the middle class, they've lived life that are basically, you would say, comfortable, not necessarily rich, but very comfortable. And so a lot of young people coming up seeing that are enticed to want to go into banking. And it, as I said, it offers a lot of opportunity for people from diverse backgrounds. It's not necessarily that you have done banking, but then it offers opportunities for an IT person can be employed in the bank. As I said, I have engineers who are my colleagues in the office who are now bankers. And so that to me, that's why I think, and also one, because in the banking industry, once you are a banker, as a means of enticing you, there are loans that are given to bank staff at concessionary rates. So not like the rates that are offered outside. And so people are able to, if you're a banker, you're able to acquire basic things that others would not be able to acquire because you are able to access such concessionary loans. And I think that that is what is driving a lot more people into the banking industry.
Let's go back to the stages that is required to become a chartered banker.
Okay.
So let's say right after high school.
Yes.
Which is, senior secondary school.
Yeah.
What does one need to do? Maybe going into the tertiary institution.
Yes.
What program does he or she needs to read? Some of the courses that he or she needs to take more seriously, and also the journey into the Chartered Institute of Bankers.
Okay, I think that for going to the university, if your focus is to become a banker, then I would advise that you either do business, because that's where you would start the journey. But if, for instance, your intention is to do other courses and to broaden your horizon, you can still do those courses. As I indicated, the best thing is to come out top of your class, do very well, because usually when the banks are recruiting, they will do what we call aptitude tests. They want to pick up the best. And so if you are already up there in whatever field you are, it becomes easier to be picked in this area. But right from senior high, you could also start with the first level of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, where you could make inquiries with them. They will tell you the courses that you start with. So you can be writing, usually I think they attend classes on Saturdays and weekends and even evenings. So that for somebody who is not probably engaged, it's convenient for you to attend those courses.
Right.
So where if for instance you are doing let's say psychology at the University of Ghana, you can be taking some of the charters or bankers courses alongside.
Okay.
So by the time you are finished with your degree, you may be halfway through with a charters or bankers, or even be close to chartering. And so that gives you a head start as compared to your colleagues. And so you can look at that. But then if you don't have the funds to start, because you would have to pay for those courses, I would advise that you go into university, do business, and if you go into any of the business school, they would usually have banking and finance, and then they'll have accounting, they will have marketing, and any of those business related HR. Even in the banks, we have HR people working there because we have HR department that you need to fill, and these are people who have had experience in HR training, and so you can do HR and still be working in the bank. Yes,
Right,
yes. And then you can do marketing. There are people who are sent out as marketers who go out to do marketing, and so you can also work in the bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would want you to tell me, what are some of the challenges that students are likely to encounter, especially at the Chartered Institute of Banking level?
I think the biggest challenge is time management.
Okay.
You cannot be at a point in time when I was writing, I used to attend classes on Friday evening, and then some Saturday, the whole of a Saturday, I will attend, and then the following Sunday, go to church. Monday, you are back at work. And so you need to manage your time. And so that's why for me, at a point in time, when I started my MBA, I had to drop some of because I had levels, I had gotten to a certain level. I said, okay, let me hold on this, finish with the MBA, and come back to it. So I think that one of the greatest challenges is time management. You need to manage your time well. Sometimes your friends at a point in time would think that you are probably anti-so, but you need to focus on what you want to achieve and get it out of the way. So that's the greatest challenge. Another thing I would say, but that is for people think that it is only the glitz and glamour that you see about banking, but it comes with a lot of sacrifice. Banking is stressful. Particularly those who are in the front line, immediately you go in, if you are serving clients, if you've not taken your breakfast, nobody is going to wait in the queue for you to go and take your breakfast. So you have to get there very early. You need to take your breakfast, and you need to start work at 8:30. Immediately you start work at 8:30. Those who close at 3, it means that you are continuously working till 3. After 3 o'clock, you need to go back to do back office work, because there are some, you need to go through the vouchers that were done to make sure that everything was done properly. By the time you finish, it's almost 6, and then you're on your way. The following day, you're on it. So that's very stressful. And so you shouldn't just look at your friend who is a banker driving a Porsche car alone. Look at what goes into it. You should be willing to sacrifice. There are times that some bankers go to work on Saturday because they need to close out some deals, they need to close out some transactions and all that. And so at that point, your family should be willing to accommodate all that. So those are some of the challenges that I think bankers go through.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would want you to speak generally. What do you think of the banking industry? What are some of the challenges that I think the banking sector is facing? Not solely in Ghana, but Africa as a continent.
I think that one of the challenges about in the banking industry has to do with our perception as Africans when it comes to being lent money and paying back. you realize that it's sometimes difficult for most people to take loan expecting to pay back. But you see, banking is about, I take somebody's money excess and gives to you for you to execute a project at a profit and pay back. As long as that flow continues, we are all fine.
Yeah.
But then if you break that flow and you are not able to pay back, then you create problems for the bank. So the recent crisis that we had in Ghana was basically people not paying up a lot of their loans. And there was laxity in monitoring. And so a lot of financial institutions accumulated a lot of bad loans. And once that happens, the regulator would clamp on you, and that led to a lot of people losing their jobs, which was not their making. So I think that's the challenge. The challenge is we should have this mindset that the bank is not a charity organization. The bank is there to help you in time of need. And when you borrow money from the bank, you should be willing to pay back, because as you pay back, it is given to somebody else who also needs it to work. Once that those things are there, the other thing, the cost of managing a bank is gradually increasing, because the bank has to invest a lot in systems to protect them from cyber attacks, fraud, and all that. And so those are some of the things that I would like to talk about. Yeah.
So based on your experience and also highlighting some of the challenges, what do you think governments or stakeholders, what measures do you think they can put in place to make the banking sector more attractive to people, especially students?
Yeah, for students, I think that it's already, as you said, I mean, it's already attractive. Students are all willing to go, but I think that regulation, the bank for us in Ghana, the Bank of Ghana is stepping up in terms of its regulatory function. It's coming up with new rules that will ensure that when there is an emerging risk that is identified, it comes up with rules that will ensure that those risks are dealt with. And so I think that they should continue to do that, and supervision. The supervisory work of the Bank of Ghana should be supported more and more, so that we would not get to a place where we got to when a lot of banks collapse. So that's another area that I would talk about. For the student, just give your studies the best. Study to become the best in whatever area that you want. And then there are opportunities. Most of the banks have recruitment portals. They don't, these days, you don't send your CV by hard copy or that. They have recruitment portals that you can log in, create a profile of yourself, and then put yourself out there. When job offers come up, you can apply, and you can send in your CV through those job portals, and then you'll be invited for interviews. So I think that is an area that the students should be looking at. Yeah.
Now back to basics about yourself. I would want you to tell me how you juggle work with family, friends, hanging out, having fun. How do you do that?
It's interesting. I think I enjoy my weekends a lot. I have 3 girls, and so I try to create time over the weekends, particularly after Sundays after church. I spend time in the house. I don't go anywhere. I try as much as possible to block that time till the evening to have fun with my family. Sometimes we get the opportunity of traveling together to visit places that we would like to hang out with. So I think that as we work hard, we should also find time to rest and to fraternize with our families. Yeah, so basically that's, and I'm a person of faith, so I enjoy going to church on Sunday. Yeah.
All right. I have some misconceptions here for you, and I'll read them out, and I want you to clear or tell us the truth in it. So the first one says that banking jobs are boring and unsociable.
It's not true.
It's not true.
It depends on where you are. There are some areas in the bank that would be a monotonous job that you continue. But some other areas, for instance, if you are a relationship manager, you manage a lot of accounts. The accounts do different kinds of things. You manage people in FMGC, that is those into